Although the Empire of Japan did not sign the Geneva Conventions, which have defined war crimes since 1864, its actions during wartime still fell under violations of both international and Japanese laws. Numerous atrocities committed by Japanese personnel breached Japanese military regulations that required such violations to be addressed through court-martial, which often did not occur. Additionally, Japan had ratified several international agreements whose terms were violated during its wartime activities. For example, the Treaty of Versailles prohibited the use of chemical weapons, and the Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907 protected prisoners of war, provisions that were frequently disregarded. Japan was also a signatory of the 1929 Kellogg-Briand Pact, which denounced war as a tool of national policy. This later formed the legal basis for prosecuting Class A war criminals, those responsible for crimes against peace, at the International Military Tribunal for the Far East, commonly known as the Tokyo Trials. War crimes categorized under Class B included direct violations of the laws of war, such as mistreatment of prisoners, while Class C crimes encompassed crimes against humanity. Japan also accepted the Potsdam Declaration in 1945, which made clear that war crimes included not only violations of international laws, such as abuse of POWs, but also domestic repression, including the obstruction of civil liberties and democratic reforms. Within Japan, the term Japanese war crimes is typically associated with those prosecuted in the Tokyo Trials. However, mid- and lower-level offenders were tried separately in other Allied-run tribunals throughout the Asia-Pacific region. Notably, these additional trials often dealt with brutal acts, such as the summary execution of prisoners. One widely known example is the 1943 beheading of Australian Sergeant Leonard Siflete in New Guinea. Despite acknowledging the outcomes of post-war trials and the 1952 Treaty of San Francisco, Japan's legal system does not formally recognize these individuals as criminals. This is because the treaty did not affirm the legal basis of the tribunals, thus preventing appeals or reversals under Japanese law. A diplomatic compromise to avoid international tensions. Different countries define the timeline of Japanese war crimes differently. While Western nations typically view the period from 1941 to 1945 as central, nations like Korea, which experienced colonization from 1910, consider earlier abuses as part of this history. Furthermore, not all perpetrators were ethnically Japanese. In several occupied territories, local collaborators assisted Japan for reasons ranging from survival to ideological.